Welcome to the Buck Brief. Auron MacIntyre in the mix with us once again, host of the Auron MacIntyre Show. He's over at The Blaze. He's a very wise fellow, and we appreciate him making the time for us. Let's start with this. What is with all this craziness over the UnitedHealthcare CEO assassin? This guy who just is like a privileged private school boy, by the way. I know what that's like. I'm not saying. But, then becomes an assassin. What the heck is with all these people who are saying, "Oh, he's like a hero and he's handsome"? Are these people just insane? Do they actually know what they're saying? What's going on?
I wonder if there isn't more to the story than we understand right now. I got to feel that at some point the other shoe's going to drop on this. But yeah, the initial reaction to a lot of people, especially on the left, but even a few people on the right, was, well, healthcare industry's terrible. These CEOs are terrible. They had it coming. And I get it to some extent that the healthcare system in the United States is not great, especially when it comes to health insurance companies. They're very often looking for any and every excuse to deny someone's claim. I think there's pretty good reason to say that there should be reform in those areas. But obviously, assassinating people in cold blood on the streets is obviously not the answer. This is not the French Revolution, and we know where these things go very quickly. Even if you're somebody who has problems with the existing healthcare system, going ahead and approving this kind of violence out in public is only going to turn on you eventually. When the left starts encouraging public violence, it never just stops with the rich or the people that you think may have something coming towards them. It's going to come for you and your family.
Yes, I think that the very clear takeaway for anybody who pays attention to what happens when radicals start to get their way with violence within a society is it overwhelmingly works out badly, not just for the society at large, but often for the people who think that they're the vanguard of that change, right? That violent revolution from within is often self-consuming. I mean, I think the American Revolution is in many ways a rare departure from that historical reality. I think there's deep and important reasons as to why that is. But I also think that seeing this and all the anger at healthcare companies in general. I mean, Auron, I feel like this country, it's almost impossible for us to have an honest conversation about the debt and what the real problem with the national debt is, and healthcare and what the real problem with our healthcare system is. And that is that a lot of people, and I would say it's a clear majority of the American people, want to get more stuff than they give from these systems or think that that is possible. And I know that's not a popular thing to say, but the free lunch idea in both the debt and in healthcare is very popular.
Well, and the problem with the healthcare industry is multifaceted, right? The idea that we even have health insurance isn't exactly accurate. If I have some kind of car insurance, I don't expect it to pay for my oil changes, these kind of things. But when it comes to healthcare insurance, we don't treat it as something catastrophic. We treat it as something that is constant and is in use all the time. It's there for maintenance. So it's not really insurance in the way that we actually understand it. And this distorts the entire system across the board. Of course, we also have a large amount of illegal immigrants in the United States using things like the emergency room of hospitals as their everyday healthcare provider. That wildly inflates the cost for people who actually pay money into the system. We're carrying a lot of artificial load into the system from people who shouldn't be here and don't contribute at all. That's something that can be changed with policy that has nothing to do with healthcare, but people just kind of roll all this together and think it's one problem.
Yeah, well, there's all these aspects of it that are a mess. First of all, I think hospitals and hospital administrators have, this has shifted over time. I think that hospitals have become some of the worst offenders when it comes to trying to jack up the profits and use their positioning within the system, right? Because now there's like they have to pay, but they change, or they have to treat people, but they can change all the different payment forms. There's no other place in American society where you go in, right? If I go in and I say I want a cheeseburger, no one says, well, hold on. Maybe we charge you $5 for this cheeseburger. Maybe we charge you $500. Let's sort of see what you're coming to the table with here. Show me your little card, right? It's bizarre. And then you also have, no one even discusses this, tort reform, which sounds boring, but it's massively important. The entire healthcare industry is hobbled in part by these ambulance chasers. I mean, I live in Miami. There are billboards everywhere for ambulance chasers. You think everybody's falling off of a ladder at work and breaking their hip every 5 seconds or something. And this causes massive Massive cost that the industry then spreads to policyholders and then creates also a more aggressive insurance pool protection, which means they don't want to actually pay out claims. Like, it just seems to me like we're basically in an increasingly subsidized and even socialized system, and nobody wants to admit that because no one wants that to change because they think that somehow it's better than if we actually just had actual insurance and then you pay for your daily or your routine health care.
Well, and that's the problem, is this system has become so Byzantine and there are so many hands in this pot that nobody wants to shift anything because there's just too many people who benefit. As you pointed out, lawyers, doctors, administrators, pharmaceutical companies, healthcare insurance companies, all of these have some factor involved in it. You can look at medical patents. You can look at the the different lawsuits being brought. You can look at the incredible amount of bloat that goes into the administration and hospitals across the board. Every one of these things works to impact and increase the cost of the system, but people just look at a CEO and say, oh, well, this one guy must be the problem. Again, there are lots of problems. I think there are deeply immoral parts of our healthcare system that do need to be addressed. But as you point out, so much of this is distorted in the marketplace by the level of involvement of just so many systems and bureaucracies that it's hard to even get to the core of the problems because it's just under layer and layer and layer of people getting paid for being a middleman somewhere inside the system.
Yeah, there's just so many obtuse incentives. And until you can start to disentangle that and clarify it and have price transparency and, like I said, tort reform and no more tying insurance to your employer, but just individuals able to buy policies like we do with everything else and selling policies easily across state lines and all these different ways, more market driven so that there are incentives for more efficient delivery of care, better healthcare outcomes. We go on and on forever. None of this happens. All we ever hear from politicians is we'll take more money from other people and make your stuff less expensive. And it is fundamentally a lie. Look at what happened since Obamacare. The average policy is like double what it was, at least before Obamacare went into effect. I mean, it's been nuts. All right, we'll come back and get into some of the Trump picks and Trump administration proposals going in here. But, protecting your home, your family is essential. But are you truly prepared? You want to have different options. A break-in happens every 25 seconds on average across this country. Can you really keep intruders out with a security system? You want to layer your defenses, and that includes non-lethal options. Start, for example, with Saber's driveway alerts to know when someone's approaching, paired with floodlights to deter them. Saber's door security bars reinforce your front and back doors, stopping up to 650 pounds of force to secure entry points even when you're not home. And if you are home, many invasions happen at night. Saber's home defense launcher is the ultimate choice to protect yourself and family. Saber projectiles hit hard, causing intense pain, and can still be effective if you miss. Plus, Saber's home defense launcher is the only 68 caliber launcher with a 7 projectile capacity, offering up to 40% more shots than others. Stay secure day or night with Saber Solutions. Go to saberradio.com. That's SABRE radio.com. Or go to this website. Call this number, 844-824-SAFE. That's 844-824-SAFE. Auron, the media's efforts to stop Pete Hegseth, it feels like this is the all of the above approach. They're all working together. They really, really want to stop Hegseth. Why do you think he's the one that bothers them the most out of all the possibilities here? I got to say, the one surprise to me is I've seen a lot less concern about Kristi Noem at DHS, even though we're supposed to see the biggest deportation surge in memory. And a lot less concern about RFK Jr., even though he's talking a big game about changing up the health system and going after big pharma. Why is Pete the one that they're just dug in on?
Yeah, to some extent, we know every single one of these appointments is going to have a level of pushback. We've seen what they've done to Kavanaugh and others. This is how the left is going to behave in every one of these. So you don't want to give them any real credence because it doesn't matter from one person to the other. But you're right, it does seem there's a specific focus on the Department of Defense, and I think that has to be because it's the forever wars are such a central part to the current regime. They feel like they want to control this. They want to make sure that they continue to keep the influence, the money, all the peddling that they've been doing with this program continuing. This is a guy who is well outside the mainstream. Many people didn't even know who he was when he was first announced. That's on purpose, I believe. Trump is bringing a lot of people from outside the swamp in to make sure that they are personally loyal and are not looking to burrow into the deep state and make a name for themselves, but are going to actually follow his directives. We've seen the generals actually directly just refuse to follow Trump's orders or keep him in the loop, properly inform him. When you have behavior like that at the very top of your military, that's incredibly dangerous. And you need somebody who you know is going to fight for you and is going to use or is going to make your policy prescriptions happen, is actually going to properly inform you. And they want to make sure that someone like that is unavailable to Donald Trump. They want a swamp creature in there. They want someone they can control.
It does strike me as concerning that the establishment view on these things is very clearly having somebody who has been directly financially benefiting from defense contractors for a number of years, let's say after, being an Air Force general or something, that makes you much more capable of making decisions that will affect the life and death of many of our service members than being somebody who's actually had bullets fly over their head and seen what happens when strategy goes awry and when we don't have the best making the decisions. You know what I mean? That's the part of this. What are they going to say? Pete's not going to be as good as Lloyd Austin? I got news for everybody.
Yeah, the number of Raytheon contracts that you stack up somehow makes you more valuable than actual combat experience, actually have a connection with the troops that you would be leading, these kind of things. It's very clear that the bureaucracy wants their own creature. They want somebody who has benefited from the establishment. They want somebody who is tied to it, who is going to follow those incentives and ignore Donald Trump, someone who could be lured in with the siren song. And again, that's why they want someone like Hegseth nowhere near this, because this is someone coming from the outside. He's going to listen to Donald Trump. He knows who has put him in this position. He doesn't owe anything to anyone else in Washington in the way that other appointees would. And that makes him uniquely dangerous because, again, perpetual war is the engine of a lot of what these people want to continue to do. And somebody who's going to stand against that, who is going to properly inform Donald Trump and properly follow out his orders, is a danger to that system.
Our sponsor here is Wide Moat Research. If you're an investor, it can be challenging to find great advice that can help you get outsized gains over time. You need to know about this guy, Brad Thomas. He's an expert in the world's largest assets, bigger than stocks and bonds combined. Brad launched his own New York Stock Exchange listed ETF, and today Brad Thomas is on a mission to help everyday investors in the stock market. He's sharing the insights he's gained from his network of investors that have followed his direction. Those followers have seen gains greater than 40% a year. Brad Thomas is opening membership to his research in a whole new way. It begins with his top investment opportunity, which could deliver huge gains as the new administration moves into the White House. He insists it's one of several investments you must move your money into before the end of 2024, coming up soon. Go to this website to check it out for yourself, bradalert.com. That's bradalert.com. One more time, bradalert.com, paid for by Wide Moat Research. Auron, what do you think is the most important fight for the incoming Trump White House and everything, and the appointees, the whole MAGA machine, if you will, to hit and go full force on day one? If you had to pick one thing, what is it?
I think it's got to be immigration. And I've been really encouraged to see that Trump has kept that front and center. It would have been really easy to walk that back, to play it down, to say, we're not going to push for the hard stuff. But all we have heard from the Trump administration at every level is mass deportations are happening. We just heard that they're going to remove ICE restrictions that keep ICE from using places like hospitals and schools to deport people when they find illegal immigrants there. It seems like we are really interested in removing the chains off of the people who are supposed to be doing their job. And that's all that it ever needed to do. The laws were already on the books. The authority was already there. It was just the political willingness to unleash the people to do their jobs and make sure that we remove people who should not be here, who are making things more expensive, less safe, who are destroying social fabric. And I am very, very glad to see that that seems to be something that the Trump administration has put at the very front of their agenda, because not only does it affect the safety and security of the people of the United States, it also impacts everything from our elections to our housing prices to our healthcare prices that we just talked about, food. Everything hinges on removing people who should not be here and restoring America back to a place where we have law and order. And if there is any immigration, it is only happening in the strictest legal way. And so I think he's got to continue to push that. And I'm very heartened to see that that has been a consistent message from the Trump admin.
I think that they're going to try, meaning the Democrats, the anti-Trump resistance, they're going to try to use this also. And I agree with you, by the way. I completely align with you. I mean, I think the taking on the deep state thing is important, but it's almost like taking on the dead. That it would be remarkable for them to do it because no one else has done it, but that's a decade-long process, I think. And that's if you have everything going right for you to really make. Maybe a decade too long, maybe it's a full term, but it's at least 4 years for you to make real change in that. Whereas on the immigration thing, I mean, if you deport a couple million people the first year, like people are going to notice that, right? And that's something that could be done. The Democrats are going to use this as their, oh my gosh, see how heartless and horrible the Trump administration is. But if they start with people who have already been adjudicated and a lot of whom are criminals, and if they can't control the media narrative thanks to X and other platforms the way they used to, I don't know that it's as effective as they would want it to be. Do you know what I'm saying? Like 15 years ago, if a Republican had done massive deportations, they would have said, we're kicking out the next founder of Google. And like, look at this, this kindly Guatemalan grandmother that's being sent home. Well, if we're sending MS-13 gang members and Tren de Aragua guys home to start out with, at least, do you think they're really going to try to make that into their rallying cry? I just don't know how they oppose that without realizing that more than half the country disagrees with them.
Oh, at some point, the left is going to find some family being separated, and we're going to get the sob story. That's definitely going to happen. But I think you're exactly right that this deportation, of course, the mechanical aspect has to work. But the most important thing is really the media blitz that comes along with it. I want to see Bukele style, just gang members lined up, marched out in droves. I want to make sure that they are constantly putting the people who have done the worst possible crimes in front of everyone and showing them being deported. We've already seen people, media outlets like Axios saying that upwards of 30 million people could leave once their parents and everybody starts getting deported. So a lot of this is just once you get the ball rolling, once you have a certain number of people moved out, once you realize that your family is not just going to move in here and live here and have no problems, then you are just going to have people who self-deport. They start moving on. You don't have to physically move every one of a 30 million illegal immigrants out of the United States. And again, if you start with the most violent offenders and you make that your primary media blitz, and very importantly, something the Trump administration has talked about, and I hope they actually do, start putting alternative media sources in there, podcasters, bloggers, others, so it's not just a monopoly of MSNBC and CNN and these guys getting control of the narrative, but that you are constantly having alternative media and outside sources bringing these stories of violent criminals who are here illegally, controlling apartment complexes and things like that, watching them get marched out and seeing that happen first, I think will really bolster the message before we get hit with the inevitable wave of, oh no, someone's kindly grandma has to go back to the place where all of her family lives and she grew up and, has been for many generations.
This holiday season, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation is delivering dozens of mortgage-free homes to deserving recipients across the country during its season of hope. Tunnel to Towers welcomed U.S. Army Captain David Christopher into his mortgage-free home during a prior season of hope. David sustained severe injuries in an accident the day before he was set to deploy to South Korea. He said a mortgage-free smart home from Tunnel to Towers enabled him to help other veterans, and he feels his purpose in life is to help others. He said receiving this smart home made him feel appreciated for the first time for his military service, and he intends to pay it forward and continue to help others in similar situations. The Season of Hope campaign is our opportunity to stand united and make a difference in the lives of those who have sacrificed so much. Help our heroes and their families now. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org. That's T2T.org. Auron, I know you got to do your own show. Thanks for being here with us. Where can people go to hear more words of wisdom from the one and only Auron MacIntyre?
Well, of course, thanks for having me. And of course, they can check me out over at Blaze TV. The show is also on YouTube, Rumble. It's going out on every podcast platform. It's the Auron MacIntyre Show across the board.
Fantastic. Good to see you, my friend. Thanks so much.
Thanks again.